Super Mario Sunshine is one of the most highly anticipated games coming out this year, and it's pretty much deserving of that. I mean, it's a Mario game. Mario's been starring in games for over 20 years now, and most of them have been super fantastic games. Super Mario Sunshine has a lot of the same great gameplay elements from the previous Mario games, but it just doesn't seem to come together quite as well as many of the previous games in the series do. The game opens with Mario and his posse taking a vacation to Isle Delfino. It's a sun-drenched island paradise that they're all heading off to for fun and excitement. But upon landing, they're not really given a really warm reception. Seems that there's been someone dressed up quite a bit like Mario running around the island causing pollution, putting a lot of graffiti all over the place, and just generally messing up the whole place. So Mario's framed for the crime. They throw him in jail and basically sentence him to clean up the island with the help of Flood, which is a jetpack, backpack, water pack thing that basically figures into just about all of the game's puzzles. Flood comes stocked with two different nozzles. The default nozzle is kind of a water cannon that'll stick over Mario's back and shoot forward at targets. You hit the R trigger and you can spray while running, but if you push the trigger all the way in, then Mario will plant his feet and then you can aim him around to shoot the water wherever you want. The alternate nozzle is a jetpack, sort of hover device that'll let you get a little added boost on your jumps, and it'll also let you kind of jump from place to place and move across great distances with the help of the water jets. But you can't just stay up in the air forever. The water pressure will eventually run out and you won't be able to stay up for more than a few seconds. Along the way, you'll eventually uncover two more nozzles for the water device. Both of them replace the hover functionality. One of them is a rocket pack that will let Mario shoot way up into the air, but you won't be able to hover afterwards. The other is a sort of propeller pack that will let you scoot along the ground at really high speeds. The rocket pack comes in handy here and there, but the propeller pack is never ever really useful. You don't need it to finish the game. It's really only there to uncover a handful of the game's secrets. Same goes for Yoshi. Yoshi returns about halfway through the game, and all he's really good for is riding around on him and basically making him like spit fruit juice all over the place. And that basically acts just like the water cannon control-wise, but it'll knock out a few barriers that your water wouldn't be able to touch. A lot of the gameplay structure in Super Mario Sunshine is taken directly from Super Mario 64. You have your overworld, which is the Isle Delfino, and you'll go into the game's 7 levels from there. Each one of the levels has a handful of different goals that you'll go into. You'll start out, you'll see kind of a menu. You'll be able to select one of the goals up to the one you've most recently completed, and be able to go into the level and see it in basically 8 different ways. There are 8 episodes per level. Each episode has a different objective, be it collecting red coins, or trying to get to a certain part of the level for a boss fight, racing someone to the top of a mountain. And upon accomplishing any one of these goals, you're given a shine, which is a little sun icon that is basically the equivalent of Super Mario 64's stars. There are 120 shines in the game, but you only need to collect around 50 or so to complete the game. A lot of the level goals in the game are pretty fun, but a lot of them are really just kind of frustrating. And you find yourself saying, more than once throughout the game, geez, thank God I'll never ever have to do this goal again. It's not that any of the goals are particularly hard. The game is pretty good about just kind of really laying it out and being really straightforward about what you need to do to get that shine. It's just that the game's technical problems pop up here and there and really kind of make things harder than they have to be. Each level in the game has at least one obstacle course goal. This will basically entail you finding a cave or some other hole in the level. When you get into that, the little Mario clone dude will steal your water pack in an FMV that is repeated way too often throughout the game, and you'll be dumped into this kind of floating block level with a shine at the end of it, and you'll kind of have to figure out how to navigate through all these crazy blocks to get to the end. You'll have blocks that are turning. You'll have to run and stay on top of them as they're turning around all over the place. Lots of spinning and moving blocks that you'll have to navigate to get to the end. It's kind of a neat idea, but they get kind of old really fast. They don't look particularly good, and it feels kind of forced. From an artistic standpoint, Super Mario Sunshine is a really nice looking game. The levels are all really well designed, the characters all look pretty good, animation's pretty solid, and it's just a neat looking island. The levels all look unique, and there's a lot going on there. From a technical standpoint, they're usually also pretty impressive. The game pretty much stays solid frame rate wise, though there are a few instances that you will see some slowdown. Doesn't really get in the way too much, except for in the game's final boss fight, which basically slows down at the worst possible time and is really super annoying. Makes the final fight harder than it should be. Also, the game has a tendency to look a little washed out at times. It's probably an effect that they intended to use to make the island seem really, really sunny, but it just doesn't work quite that way. And the game is pretty colorful, but at times the colors just seem a little washed out and a little weird looking. Mario controls really well. The controls basically haven't changed too much from Super Mario 64, except that you of course now have the water pack and the moves that entails. Mario also can't punch anymore, so you're left with jumping on top of enemies or using the water to dispose of foes. But for as well as Mario controls, you also have to spend a lot of time controlling the camera, and this is where actually a lot of the game's difficulty comes from, is kind of keeping the camera in check while doing what you need to do, and that can be pretty frustrating. The camera is really slow when it comes to auto-correcting and getting behind Mario whenever you're moving around. While it does give you full control of the camera using the C-stick, there are some instances where it simply won't stay where you put it. You'll want to see a specific angle, but the minute you start moving and you let go of that C-stick, it'll just whip right back around. The final boss fight suffers from that, and there's a Ferris wheel level that's in pretty tight quarters that really won't let you ever get a good view of the action. Sometimes the camera will also just kind of have you staring at a wall. You can't even see Mario. In these spots, you'll kind of see Mario's silhouette through things, and if there are coins or enemies, then they'll be replaced by little silhouetted question marks. But you can't jump from platform to platform when you can't see any of the platforms at all, and there are a few too many instances where you can't really get a good view of the action to really be acceptable. It's really unfortunate. The game even has what is kind of like a porthole effect. It's supposed to kind of open up through walls and give you kind of a little circle to view the action and see Mario through this wall, but it doesn't seem to actually work. The effect does kind of come into play here and there, but it kind of shows up when you would never ever really need it, and when you actually would want a hole to see through the action, it instead just kind of has you staring at this wall and unable to see stuff. If you could kind of lock the camera in place, that'd be nice for some of these things. That'd fix some of the problem. But it's for as well as Mario controls, you really want to be focusing on controlling Mario, because it works so well. And when the camera's not in the way, the game is great. When the camera gets in the way, it's super frustrating and super, super annoying. Super Mario Sunshine has some great sound in it. Some of the effects, like Mario's footsteps, or some of the incidental effects like that, sound really great and are really well done. He has the kind of the standard repertoire of hoots and hollers from him jumping around and stuff like that. The game has some voiceover work used in some of the FMV sequences, and just about all of that is really, really bad. All the voice actors just really don't kind of convey the proper attitude for the characters, and it really just comes across as they just found some people off the street and said, all right, come in here, and all right, the princess is ditzy and the game's bad guys kind of sound, well, without giving away too much of the storyline, let's just suffice to say that the bad guys in the game sound really, really terrible. Musically, the game has some decent tunes to it, but there's nothing that really stands out and is hummable or anything like that. It's all pretty competent, and the reworking of the Super Mario Brothers theme used in those obstacle course levels really just kind of feels like a forced thing, like just kind of thrown in there to remind you, hey, this is a Mario game, remember? And it doesn't really sound all that great. In the end, Super Mario Sunshine is a pretty good game that is hurt quite a bit by a lot of technical shortcomings. The camera stuff really gets in the way more than it should. There's some slowdown there. There's also a few clipping issues. In the amusement park level, you can actually fall right through the floor of a boat into the water below. And there's a few spots where you can actually get stuck inside walls, or certain like level specific items can get stuck inside walls and just kind of leave you trapped, and you have to quit out of the level. That doesn't happen a whole lot, but it's little things like that that just kind of add up to make the game feel just kind of unpolished. Like, you know, these are things that probably could have and definitely should have been fixed before releasing it, and as a result, the game feels a little rushed. That said, when it's good, it's a really good game, and given the lack of solid platformers on the GameCube, it's a game that is fairly easy to recommend for fans of the platform genre.